Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're venturing into a place that, well, it really embodies profound contradictions. Aokigahara, you might know it as the Sea of Trees, maybe Jukai, right there at the base of Mount Fuji in
A
Japan.
stunning location visually.
Absolutely stunning. But on the other hand, it has this incredibly somber, tragic reputation. It's known as one of the world's most frequent sites for suicide.
Yeah.
So, our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack that, the complex interplay of, geology, ecology, history, culture, psychology, everything that shaped Akigahara's identity using all the sources you've shared with us.
Right. And I think it's important to understand from the get-go, this isn't just about a place on a map.
No.
To really get Aokigahara, we have to dig into these deeper societal, uh, human factors that have all sort of converged on this forest. It's how this place of natural beauty became associated with such, well, profound despair.
Okay, so let's start with that landscape then,
Yeah.
because its foundation, its very ground, is a direct result of Mount Fuji's power, isn't it? We're talking about that huge eruption back in 864 CE. It just laid down this massive field of hardened lava.
Exactly. And over, more than 1,000 years, this lava has created a really distinct, almost otherworldly environment.
How so?
Well, the rock itself, the solidified lava, it's incredibly porous, but also really hard for plants to penetrate deeply.
Oh, okay.
So the trees, they've developed these surprisingly shallow root systems. Now, normally, that would make them vulnerable,
You
right?
think?
But the sheer density of the forest, I mean, the trees are packed so closely together, it acts as this incredibly powerful natural windbreak.
Ah,
It's amazing, really, a testament to nature's adaptability.
yeah.
But it also kind of sets the stage for something, well, something quite unnerving.
And that density, it creates a really unique sensory experience, doesn't it? The sources talk about an eerie perpetual twilight because so little sunlight actually gets through the canopy.
Very little.
Plus, all those trees, they just soak up sound. It leads to this almost unnerving silence. People say you feel incredibly isolated there.
That profound silence, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's actually amplified by other things that can disorient you,
Like what?
like the high iron content in the volcanic soil.
Yeah.
It famously makes compasses malfunction.
Right. I've heard that.
So it's notoriously easy to get lost if you step off the marked trails.
Yep.
And visitors often report this, like almost imperceptible chill, even on warm days.
Weird.
And the roots, those ancient gnarled roots, snake across the ground.
Yeah.
People say they look like skeletal fingers reaching out.
Wow. Okay.
So the forest doesn't just offer privacy, it actively kind of disorients you, which tragically for someone in deep despair might solidify this feeling of, irreversible commitment.
It's such a paradox, though, because despite all these unsettling details, this grim reputation, Aokigahara is still a vibrant ecosystem, right?
Absolutely. Life is thriving there.
It's a testament to nature's resilience, even in what seems like pretty tough conditions. That's the really complex thing here, isn't it? How that resilience can exist side by side with such profound human despair.
It truly is.
But this somber reputation, it isn't just a modern thing, is it? It feels like the forest has held this darker meaning in Japan's history and culture for a long time.
You're absolutely right. It goes way back. For centuries, Aokigahara has been linked, at least in folklore, to the practice of ubusute.
Upasu, what does that mean exactly?
It literally translates to abandoning an old woman.
Yeah.
It refers to a legendary practice supposedly during times of really severe famine,
Okay.
where elderly or infirm relatives were sometimes taken to remote places like deep forests or mountains and just left to die.
Oh, that's grim.
It is. Now, whether widespread ubusute actually happened historically, well, that's debated by scholars.
Right.
But its impact on folklore is undeniable. It definitely contributed to the forest's grim reputation early on, this idea of it being a place of abandonment and death. But some people say, echoes of these forgotten souls still linger there.
And it goes even deeper, doesn't it? Tying into the spiritual side of things. Mount Fuji itself and the forests around it, they've long been seen as sacred spaces in Japan.
Hugely important. And what's striking is how that sacredness kind of intertwined with ideas of self-sacrifice, though maybe not in the way we immediately think of it.
What do you mean?
Well, for over 1,000 years, ascetic Buddhist monks, they would retreat into forests, including those around Fuji.
Okay.
They practiced extreme self-denial, deep meditation.
Yeah.
Sometimes this led to their death. There were even practices like self-mummification.
Wow. Self-mummification.
Yeah, so kushinbutsu is a very specific, intense ascetic practice. So this historical association, even though it wasn't direct suicide in the modern sense, it subtly cemented the forest's image a place where life could deliberately end, perhaps where the veil between worlds felt thinner.
Hmm.
There are even these whispers, folklore about ancient ley lines converging under the forest floor, these paths of invisible energy. Adds another layer to the mystique.
So, okay, we've got these ancient roots, the folklore, the spiritual connections. But how did Aokigahara really morph into the infamous site it's known as today? Was there a specific trigger that pushed it into modern notoriety?
There absolutely was. And surprisingly, perhaps, a lot of it traces back to literature.
Really? Books?
Yeah, a really significant turning point was this influential novel from the 1960s. It depicted two lovers ending their lives together in the forest.
Oh, I think I know the one you mean. Nami no Te, Tower of Waves.
That's the one, by Seiichiro Matsumoto. It inadvertently kind of popularized the forest for what some people tragically termed romantic suicides.
Huh.
Then later, in the 1990s, there's a much more controversial publication.
Controversial how?
It explicitly called Aokigahara the perfect place to die, and it even offered practical advice on how to navigate the forest, how to avoid being found.
No way. That's incredibly irresponsible.
Extremely. And copies of this book were reportedly found near the remains of some victims. It added this really chilling layer to its allure and just tragically cemented its image in the public consciousness.
And psychologically, you can sort of see the tragic appeal, can't you? The sources talk about the unparalleled isolation and privacy it offers. That feeling of stepping outside the bounds of the living world. The symbolic act of just disappearing into nature. These must be really potent factors for someone in that state of mind.
They are potent, and it raises this really important, difficult question.
Mm.
How much of this phenomenon is, well, self-perpetuating?
Like a feedback loop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The forest's established reputation, its notoriety, it can lead to this awful contagion or copycat effect,
Right.
where the place itself, because of its reputation, influences others. It creates this grim allure, like following a path already worn down by despair. Some people even believe that the pervasive sense of despair left behind by previous victims kind of hangs in the air, weighing heavily on new arrivals,
But the environment itself absorbs it.
almost as if it becomes a conduit for that feeling. Yeah, it's a heavy thought.
Then you add in the cultural attitudes towards suicide in Japan, which are different, aren't they? Unlike, say, many Abrahamic religions, suicide there doesn't carry the same kind of strong religious stigma.
That's a really crucial point. Historically, there were even accepted forms, like seppuku, the ritual suicide performed by samurai.
Right, the honorable death concept.
Precisely. Now, obviously, that's very different from the situations driving people to Aokigahara today, but that cultural nuance, that lack of overriding religious condemnation, it does play a role.
How so?
Well, it perhaps means that Aokigahara becomes viewed, tragically, as more than just a secluded spot. For some, burdened by modern societal pressures, maybe economic hardship, crushing overwork, deep social isolation, it might feel like a final act that aligns in a distorted way with a cultural value of not burdening others.
So disappearing quietly.
Disappearing quietly, yeah. Transforming despair into this solitary, almost private retreat. It's a devastating distortion, of course. But that cultural backdrop, combined with those very real modern pressures, contributes to why someone might choose such a private, isolated death there.
It's just tragically ironic, isn't it? That profound silence, the incredible natural beauty of the place. It gets misinterpreted by people in such deep despair. They see it as a tranquil place for a final act, like returning to nature.
It is deeply ironic. And the forest itself, in this really cruel twist, kind of reinforces that sense of finality.
Because it's so easy to get lost.
Exactly. The disorientation for the magnetic anomalies, the uneven, difficult terrain.
Yeah.
It makes it notoriously easy to lose your way. That can solidify that awful feeling of irreversible commitment.
And rescue must be incredibly difficult.
Very. That dense canopy, the one that creates the twilight, it prevents rescue helicopters from easily spotting anyone below.
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
And you find these chilling signs, discarded items left behind, bottles, shoes, personal effects,
Yeah.
just left there by those who never return. It's a powerful, silent testament to the forest's grim reality.
And yet, for all its remoteness and seclusion, Aokigahara is still relatively accessible, isn't it? Especially from huge population centers like Tokyo.
Yeah, that's another key factor. It combines this relative ease of access with profound seclusion once you're inside. It's a uniquely tragic combination.
So, beyond the mystique, the cultural currents, we have to confront the stark painful reality of the numbers, don't we? Even though, as you said, authorities don't release exact figures anymore.
Right. They stopped publicly releasing the numbers, hoping to avoid sensationalism and reduce that copycat effect we talked about.
Which raises its own questions about transparency versus prevention.
It does. But historically, the numbers we do have are stark. In the early 2000s, we know dozens of bodies were being found annually. Sometimes it exceeded 100. Like, I think over 100 were recovered in 2003.
Goodness.
And even as recently as 2010, there were dozens of confirmed suicides out of over 200 reported attempts.
And those are just the ones found or reported.
Exactly. Given the forest's density, how easy it is to get lost and remain hidden, the true total is almost certainly much higher.
Yeah.
We just don't know by how much.
And when we look at the demographics nationally in Japan, there's a disproportionate number of males among suicide victims, isn't there? Over 70%.
That's correct nationally. And it's very likely that pattern extends to Aokigahara as well. It's often linked to societal pressures, economic factors, cultural expectations placed on men.
Has that demographic shifted at all over time?
Well, historically, older males, particularly those in their 50s, 60s, even 75 and older, made up a significant portion of suicide deaths nationally. More recently, though, especially around the COVID-19 pandemic, there were noticeable increases among younger men, like ages 20, 29, and those 40, 49. And increases were seen across various age groups for women, too, from their 20s right up to their 60s. So it shows the pressures are evolving, reflecting these broader societal shifts and stresses.
And the families left behind, their grief is often silent, isn't it? Public statements from relatives are apparently quite rare.
Very rare. There's often an intense stigma still associated with suicide in Japan and a strong cultural preference for, well, privacy and silence, especially around difficult family matters.
Which makes those warning signs at the forest entrance even more pointed.
Exactly. They directly appeal to those deep familial bonds that are so valued in Japanese society. Signs saying things like, think carefully about your children, your family.
Or, your life is a precious gift from your parents.
Right. It's a direct attempt to evoke that sense of responsibility, that connection, hoping to pull someone back from the brink by reminding them of those ties.
As the world watches, Aokigahara has become the subject of intense media focus, but the approach seems really different depending on where the coverage comes from.
Definitely.
Japanese media, for instance, typically seems to adopt this mix of discretion, concern, and a focus on prevention. They tend to avoid graphic details or anything that might glorify it.
That's generally true. It's striking how much their approach emphasizes prevention. Japanese news outlets often highlight the work being done by local officials, police, volunteer patrols.
Right, the people trying to help.
Exactly. And they increasingly focus on the underlying issues, mental health challenges, the impact on the local communities near the forest. They also pretty openly condemn foreign sensationalism. They see it as deeply unhelpful, even harmful.
And speaking of foreign sensationalism, there was that really controversial incident in 2017, wasn't there, with the prominent American online personality?
Ah, yes. That caused a huge outcry.
He filmed and uploaded a video that featured the body of a deceased man found in the forest. It went viral, and the condemnation was just widespread, wasn't it? For insensitivity, disrespect, exploitation.
The backlash was immense, absolutely. That led to apologies, demonetization, the whole thing. But more importantly, it sparked this huge, necessary debate about ethical content creation online, especially around sensitive topics like suicide.
A real low point in how the forest has been portrayed internationally.
It really was. A stark example of how not to approach it. And it definitely exacerbated the forest's grim image globally, ironically achieving exactly the kind of sensationalism the Japanese media tries so hard to avoid.
But it's not all macabre, is it? We should also mention the unseen cases, the rescues and interventions that happen.
That's a crucial point, yes. Rangers, volunteers, even just other visitors sometimes encounter people in distress and manage to intervene.
Those represent real moments of hope amidst all the despair associated with the place.
They absolutely do. And, many documentaries and media pieces have tried to understand the phenomenon more deeply. Some have definitely veered into sensationalism, unfortunately.
Right.
But others have genuinely tried to shed light on Japan's broader mental health crisis, the societal pressures, the complexities of human suffering that lead people there. For better or worse, these productions have kept Aokigahara in the public eye, prompting a global conversation, even if it's sometimes uncomfortable.
And then there's a fictional portrayal like the 2016 American horror film The Forest.
Ah, yes, starring Natalie Dormer.
Right. It's pitched as a supernatural horror movie about a woman searching for her twin sister who's gone missing in Aokigahara.
It's really important to draw a clear line between that film and the reality of Aokigahara.
How so?
Well, the film introduces these overtly supernatural elements, right? External fantastical threats, vengeful spirits, that kind of thing. That's very different from the real psychological, social, and environmental factors at play in the actual
And
forest.
it wasn't even filmed there, was it?
No, crucially, it was filmed mostly in Serbia, and it faced criticism, quite fairly, I think, for sensationalizing a real human tragedy, reducing it to jump scares and horror tropes.
Yeah.
It arguably misrepresented Japanese cultural nuances too, offering a pretty simplistic take on yūrei, the traditional Japanese spirits or ghosts. Other films, both Japanese and international, have tried different approaches, sometimes focusing more on the human drama and the psychological elements, which often feels more respectful of the reality.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, we're left with this image of Aokigahara as just a place of profound contradictions, this
Mm.
stunning natural beauty side by side with so much sadness and death.
Yeah. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, I think understanding Aokigahara really requires looking beyond the macabre, beyond just the grim statistics.
Right.
You have to see the complex interplay of nature, culture, history, and the human condition itself. It's a place where the physical landscape, deep-seated cultural threads, and modern human despair have just tragically intertwined.
So what does Aokigahara teach us then? Us listening, us talking about it now, what does it tell us about the universal challenges of mental health, maybe? And that desperate need for compassion, for support for people who are struggling, often invisibly in the shadows.
That's the core question, isn't it?
How can the story of this one specific forest, maybe, compel us to understand better, to reach out more effectively to those who are facing their darkest moments wherever they are?
You know, the forest's deepest mysteries, why it holds such a specific pull, maybe those will remain forever beyond our full comprehension. But its story, I think, serves as this stark, really enduring reminder, a reminder of the silent battles fought within the human heart, and a reminder of the profound universal importance of reaching out, of connection, of supporting one another, especially when despair feels overwhelming.